we back with another reflection on the Daily Vedantic. And I got this jacket on again, so you know it's going to be a wild one. For those that are tuning in without video, imagine me having a wild jacket on. And that's what I got. Quite comfy, quite warm. But it's always a wild episode when I got one of these on. And today ain't no different. And that's because today's episode is a reflection on something that I had never heard within any spiritual discipline. In the same way that the Gita is based on this massive civil war and this conversation between a warrior prince and his charioteer right in the middle of the battlefield before the biggest battle of this 13-year civil war. And it is, that is unique in its own right. A spiritual text that takes place in the middle of a battlefield. Something else that I had never heard before is that within this philosophy, it cautions us against becoming too attached to the philosophy. One of the Upanishads, the Ishavasya Upanishad, says quite directly, attachment to the material realm is great darkness. Attachment to the spiritual realm is greater darkness. I always thought if you have a higher knowledge, we should all, reorient everything about us towards that and try to imbibe every moment of every day. And it actually was Swami telling me to dial it back. Just do one lecture a day. Don't read any other books. I was getting my hands on every esoteric text within Vedanta that I could for a while. And somehow word got back to him and he told me to not short circuit. And to just do one lecture a day and not to even don't even take notes. Attachment to the material world is great darkness. Attachment to the spiritual world is greater darkness. It's so profound that this is outlined within the philosophy because it happens to be the case for anyone that takes any spiritual realm seriously or sincerely. There isn't anything that is nearly as fascinating as the concepts within the spiritual realm. We're talking about eternity, eternal bliss, eternal peace. We're subjected to 2,800 advertisements a day in America on average, but no one's going to tell you that car is going to give you eternal bliss. No one's even going to broach that cheeseburger is going to give you eternal peace. But that's what's being promised in the realm of spiritual philosophy, within religious texts. That is the promise. So it actually is no wonder that we can find ourselves, in fact, maybe the default position when we start to take to a spiritual path and take to it seriously. Perhaps the default position for many is, for all of us perhaps, if we're not careful, is the zealot. The overpassionate, overconfident, insecure apologist that is so biased in everything that they see, feeling like they have the ultimate truth. Feeling like, man, they're a few steps away from eternal bliss and peace. It is actually quite understandable why that is the default position, because of what hangs in the balance. If you start to take these concepts seriously, nothing comes close to being as fascinating. But attachment to the concepts is great darkness. In fact, explicitly stated as greater darkness than attachment to wealth or pleasure. It is attachment just the same. One might be worldly, the other might be for the eternal, but it is attachment, selfish attachment, just the same. And it's the worst kind of darkness because you feel like you are more noble than everybody else, more studied, more favored, wiser, and that is great, great, great darkness when we think we are the wisest person around. That's an absolute blindfold for anything that you could learn from anyone or any experience or any teacher. And that attachment to a book, to scholarship, to texts, to verses, to concepts, to ideas, that attachment keeps us from the truth. Because the truth isn't in the spiritual realm. The truth is not a book. The truth is not a concept. The truth is an experience. The thing that is sure to keep us from experiencing truth is thinking that truth is in a concept, is in a verse, or is in a book. Thinking that truth is in an idea in our heads. That keeps us from experiencing truth itself. Truth is not words, and it is not an attachment. It is an experience. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Daily Vedantic. This reflection is part of a free repeating 2-year course in Advaita Vedanta. Rooted in the timeless wisdom of the Upanishads, arguably the oldest philosophical texts on earth, you can begin with episode 1, which gives the 15-minute overview of the whole philosophy of Vedanta, or you can join the journey with any episode at any point. But the critical aspect of this course, of understanding and mastering anything, is to study and reflect, even for 10 to 15 minutes on the timeless each day, preferably at the start of your day. As is said in this philosophy, reflection is 100,000 times as powerful as listening. So listen, journal, sit with, discuss these concepts, or ask questions at thedailyvedantic.com with our AI-powered chatbot informed by about 700 episodes here, as regularly as one can if you want to see clarity and peace almost effortlessly unfold in your daily life. And if it doesn't result in a near immediate increase in clarity and peace, then toss aside and feel free to never listen again. One of the things that you might notice is after 7 or 8 days in a row, this doesn't feel like a discipline. This feels like a visit with a best friend to dive into the timeless with daily reflection. Within a few days, it becomes one of your favorite parts of the day. You can also find out more, including news about in-person events in Los Angeles and beyond, at the Daily Vedantic on Instagram or through our weekly newsletter at thedailyvedantic.com. Additionally, check out the links in our show notes for more resources like the books that are mentioned most frequently in the episodes, including Vedanta Treatise, perhaps the simplest and most straightforward read on this philosophy I've ever come across. Until next time, and from the entire team that works on the Daily Vedantic project, thanks for listening.